Aloha, welcome back to Aina Bear Farm. It's a beautiful blue sky morning here out in the food forest. And just wanted to give you guys some updates. Been a while since I've made any videos, just been crazy busy keeping up with everything here. From the looks of it, looks pretty lush and typical for this time of year. This is our typical wet season on this part of the Big Island, which is generally from December through May. And this year, though, our wet season has been very dry. We went about a month and a half without a drop of rain. And then the last week or so, we've started to make up for it with about 8 inches of rain just in the last few days. So I just want to kind of talk on that topic a little bit. Drought, which is something that's come up on my channel before. But drought in the wet season can be particularly concerning. But, one of the biggest benefits of planting in a food forest as opposed to something more like a traditional orchard is that you insulate yourself from the symptoms of drought. And I'm standing here by what is now a very large ice cream bean tree, which is a really good example of that type of insulation. So, a lot of times in the winter, you would really heavily prune these support trees like this and open up the light, kind of let things dry out a little bit more. But you have the option of leaving more canopy. And so in a year like this, where it's been very dry, I left this enormous canopy up to provide more shade, which obviously protects the trees that are in the nearby vicinity, but also just insulates the ground. And we've got all that nice leaf litter biomass building up now that keeps the soil temperature down, locks in the moisture. The organic matter, as it starts to break down, it holds more moisture. So just tons of benefits to those types of methods. And, that's why nothing in permaculture is like a universal prescriptive thing. Like, oh, every year in February you prune your support species. Not necessarily. It's always observation first. In Hawai'i, we refer that as kilo, being aware of your surroundings and responding to them accordingly. A few other kind of interesting things. So like this is a purple kaimito, which is it's really a water-loving tree of a lot of the different fruit trees that I have. This one is probably at the top end of the list of, not liking to dry out. And so this is one I had to give supplemental water to, which I did on a pretty close to weekly basis. It may have been like a 2-week period where I let it go, but I would just come out with the hose and drench the area around it really well. And if I didn't, I have decided not to do that in the past, and it's survived, but it really sets the tree back quite a bit. I mean, it loses most of its leaves and just some of the branches, just very not happy. And so I have decided, kind of made the decision that in times of drought, I will baby these types of trees a little bit more. Another one that fits that category is the Rollinia, just a really water-loving tree. And so they do sometimes defoliate. I've got a few different annonas here. I've got quite a few soursop, quite a few Rollinia, chirimoya, and a couple other more rare annonas, but they seem to defoliate in kind of different ways. Like the chirimoya just seems to defoliate every winter no matter what. The Rollinia seems to be more like when it dries out, it drops a lot of leaves, but you can see, we're getting new leaf growth here, and actually a decent amount of fruit up in the canopy up there for this size tree. So I think there's at least 5 fruit growing up there. But again, trying to keep it really watered. So this is another one, once a week, come out and drench it. You can see the ferns are happy. They've stayed really moist. The ferns just kind of add a ground cover layer that locks in more moisture, more shade. And then this tree has gotten a nice heavy dose of wood chips and compost and other mulches to really help lock that in. And back this way, there's a few trees that actually benefit from drying out, one of which are mangoes. They do not like the constant rain that we get, and if the timing is off, they'll flower right when we're starting to get our rainy season, and the flowers will just rot. A lot of mangoes are susceptible to anthracnose here because of the high humidity. We only plant varieties that are anthracnose resistant. This is a mapulehu that I just prune and prune and prune, and it just grows like a monster. But you can see we're getting decent flowering this year. So it's not at, maximum, but I don't know, getting close to maybe half of what I'm aiming for. And you can see here and there a few little fruits coming. So, this is an example of a tree where, it can actually be good when it's dry this time of year. The sort of catch-22 is that when it's pushing fruit, it does need some water. And so I actually have not given this much supplemental water. This is more of like an every 2 weeks type of thing. But that again is pretty exciting. I've got a couple of newbies out here. This is a Ross sapote that I picked up. So that's something different that we've not grown before. Completely different than the other sapotes like the white sapote and the black sapote and mame sapote. We've got a lot of sapotes, but they're all so different. So kind of interested to see how that one's going to do. This is a Jamaican yellow heart, ulu or breadfruit, which I think I have shown before. Other trees like soursop seem to be weathering the drought pretty well. Most of them look like this, pretty full foliage right now, and got some fruits here and there. This is another one of those less common anonas, at least in Hawaii. This is the Salzmani beach sugar apple. And some of these water-loving trees, like this Malabar chestnut, we intentionally planted that in a little bit of a gulch there, a little ditch, so that it could access even more water. It's weathered the drought really well. This loquat just got a huge haircut. So it's actually the first time I've pruned this one. Had a decent amount of fruit on it this year. This is a golden nugget. Am I losing the word? Variety, I don't know. I'll say that for now. Grafted, that's what I was looking for. The golden nugget grafted variety that the fruit had just gotten it was growing way up here, so much less accessible. And so just cut it way back this year. left a few branches that I thought were growing in more of kind of an optimal way, like these are like, it's a little bit more out. You can see some nice size golden fruits up there. Look like they're about ready to pick. And our little callow patch here is actually doing really well, and this is definitely a water-loving plant. Again, it's in that kind of same ditch, but it's also on irrigation. And plenty of organic matter. We put in a lot of compost, wood chips. Hey, look at that stuff. That is at least an inch deep of straight organic material with the grass clippings on top of that to just shield it even more. And so even in a drought, doing pretty well. And then these are our white pineapples a little further back. So if they're blooming, we'll walk over there in a second, but so far not getting nearly the crop I'm hoping for this year. So we'll see, maybe we'll have some late blooming ones. Here we've got an ulu that's actually got some fruit on it, which is a little bit unusual timing. That's the thing about Hawaii and where you are in Hawaii, like there's typical growing seasons for things, and then there's what actually happens. And sometimes they line up and sometimes they don't. See, these pineapples look a little stressed, that like red coloration. And then some of these, though, that were better protected by the pigeon pea, not as bad. But I've noticed that does not tend to have much of an effect on fruit production here. You can see the little fruits coming there. They still grow really good sized fruits, really good flavor. Here are Kerry mangoes. This is another one I just prune and prune and prune. And it just wants to be a monster. But also just now starting to set flowers, so hopefully we'll get a decent crop off of that one this year as well. Bananas everywhere. Namwa. Thai sweet banana. It's our Namdok Mai mango. New growth, but no flowers yet. This is one that might flower this year. We're just kind of waiting to see. Our mac nuts seem to be a little bit late right now. I've seen a lot of flowers on mac nut trees in our area, but none here yet. So we'll see. And the longan and the lychee, like the soapberry family of trees, so that's a longan. That's one of the BUQ grafted varieties. They seem to be fruiting minimally this year. This one's just now got a few flower clusters on it, and one of our bigger lychees is the same. This one fruited decently last year, so I don't know, we'll see. I pruned it back. We're in kind of an interesting spot for these. Like, they do like a little bit of cold in the winter to force flowering, and sometimes we get that and sometimes we don't. And by cold I mean like upper 50s is the coldest it gets at night, but that can be enough because I think it's a little bit relative for these trees. They get used to like a certain constant temperature and then it dips, and then that kind of shoots them into flowering. But so I don't know, I'm not expecting anything huge this year, but you never know. Our Satsuma is a champion, covered in flowers, amazing fragrance. Satsuma tangerine. This little tree probably made 100 fruit in the fall. It's again covered in flowers. It is like the giving tree. This thing just amazing. And I don't even really do that much for it. Some of our Jaboticaba, the red, are getting big. Still no flowers. It can be a little slow. We'll see. Another one there. We've still got a lot of material to wood chip at this point. I mean, it's almost constant now. We've gotten our first blackberry jam fruit. You can see a couple ripe ones down there. So maybe I'll grab one while we're here, just in case. Perhaps you have not seen these before. So I open it up, get that to focus. Consistency of blackberry jam inside. And the flavor is really interesting. Does not taste at all like blackberry jam. Oh, while I'm here, might as well mention avocado is going off for the second time this year, full of flowers and little fruits. So as I was saying, it does not taste like blackberry jam, pretty much at all. It definitely has the look and consistency, but I would describe the flavor as like, it's a little bit like tea flavored, like a dark tea, like a black tea. Also a little raisiny. I actually quite like the flavor though, but it's very seedy, and it's not something that's gonna like ever fill you up or anything. That is for sure. Our big chocolate pudding fruit tree, looking very happy, very healthy, but no flowers right now. This one's kind of stumped me in terms of its fruiting schedule. That might be another one that needs a little bit of temperature variation. Who knows? Our Zemon pink jackfruit is becoming a regular fruit producer now, which is pretty cool. These are dwarf. It's a dwarf variety of jackfruit. It makes fruits that are about probably like 10 pounds max. So it's actually kind of like doable as opposed to the gigantic ones where it could take you months to eat it. And another cool stop here is a yellow Jaboticaba, which we're getting our first fruits off of. Let's see here. Try to find, there's a good one there. So, you know, about the size of the typical red, but a really interesting flavor. It's the first year I've had them. Got a little bit of that Suriname cherry kind of flavor, which I'm not a huge fan of with the Suriname cherries, but with this, it's really nicely balanced with the sweet, more Jaboticaba, like the red kind of flavor. And I don't know, I actually like it. So surprising, different. Compost pile breaking down there. We put in a lot of, I can get my own shadow out of the way, these native ferns, kupu kupu. So this is something I had to wait through the entire drought because, you know, they just would not have done very well. But this was the whole kind of point of this area under here. We're under large acacia confusa trees. And this area is fully shaded. We're in zone 3 right now. And it was really difficult to mow, even though the grass was really starting to thin out. But I put down cardboard, a little bit of wood chips to hold everything in place, and then I had wanted to come back and put in these ferns. And so these will spread like a carpet. I mean, eventually it'll be pretty much nothing but that under here. And then that's a native mamaki and another native mamaki over to the side there. And so that's kind of the idea with some of these zone 3 understories, is like fill in with native ferns and ground covers and other shade-loving plants. Another Rollinia that's pretty happy in the shade. It does have this kind of like extreme leaf curl. I'm trying to figure out. Can't quite tell what that's about. Sometimes that's just the way certain plants grow. I don't know if you know anything about that. Let me know. And then, again, we've got a lot of our ice cream beans just getting really big, providing a ton of shade and biomass. And then we'll head over to look at the progressing Zone 3 area and close this video out. Casteri mango. Lots of new growth there. So, all right. This is the Zone 3 where we've got some support species in here. I'm going to take a closer look here. So this is more of that Acacia confusa. These guys grow so big, so fast. Nitrogen fixers, relative of Koa and Kauai, but not native. They're just a little easier to grow though. And then I put in ice cream beans, typically on the southwest corner of a lot of these tree planting circles. A little pigeon pea here, because when I plant these, this will be like a main kind of chop and drop support plant. And then I've got this ice cream bean, which will be allowed to get bigger, kind of like these ones, to make some more shade and slow down all this grass so I don't have to cut the grass all the time. Kukui is a Hawaiian canoe plant brought by the native Hawaiians. It's been here a long time. It's a great companion plant, support species. And then out in the zones 4 and 5, we've put in some other interesting things, more Malabar chestnut, plenty of ice cream bean. Here's a little one. There's a bigger one out there. Put in some palm trees, kukui, kolea, another native. So yeah, there's been a lot going on. So even though we haven't had a video update in a while, I've been busy keeping up with things. I've got a couple other ideas of videos here to get out there in the near future. But as always, if you have questions, comments, put those down and come back and see us again soon. We appreciate you. Aloha.